world he inhabits is, in some respects, counterfeit. There's nothing fake about Truman himself.
Yo, what up? It's the kid Ríez, and today I'm going to be breaking down one of my favorite movies of all time, The Truman Show. Let's get into it. The Truman Show was a 1998 film directed by Peter Weir that starred Jim Carrey in his first of many non-comedic roles. In the movie, we follow a man named Truman Burbank, i.e. True Man, and he's this lovable, charismatic guy that doesn't have many traits, but he has spent his entire life under the microscope of the world in Sea Haven. His entire existence is a set piece. From the strangers to his friends and family, everyone is an actor in Truman's life, playing a specific role to keep him in the loop of free will versus determination. The movie's antagonist, Christoph, which could be read literal as Christ off, is somewhat of a demigod, not the true creator, but a false god. Early in the movie, Truman's reality starts to unravel when a stage light falls from the sky. Bewildered by this event, he strolls over and picks up the light, but what's even more interesting than the light falling is what's written on the light: Sirius Non Canis Major. This is a reference to the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, often draped in mystique and supernatural qualities. In my interpretation, this is the first of many moments when Truman is being enlightened. I compare it to the story of Adam and Eve and how they live in naivety, unaware of being confined to the garden until eating from the tree of knowledge. Truman, witnessing the light fall from the false ceiling, sets him on the path to the truth. In the movie, Truman's wife is his forced love interest. Remember, everything in Truman's life is controlled by Christoph, but the one thing that is uncontrollable in this world is love. Truman's interaction with the woman named Sylvia is the moment he goes off script, and despite Christoph's forced love interest, he still chases after Sylvia. Truman notices that there's something wildly authentic about her, and throughout the movie he finds himself in awe whenever he's near her. They eventually find time with one another and share an intimate moment before being separated by Sylvia's actor father. She warns Truman that nothing in this world is as it seems. Sylvia's father tells Truman they're moving to Fiji, which is why throughout the movie Truman wants to go to Fiji so bad.
Sylvia! Hey!
One day when Truman was driving, he noticed the radio was acting strange, but once he listened in closer, he noticed that whoever was speaking was describing his every move.
Okay, he's making his turn onto Lancaster Square.
This was another enlightening moment for Truman because he starts to defy his programming even more. Instead of going straight to work, he wanders. He sits down and notices how perfect everything is, how sharp the world looks, almost like a commercial of sorts. He even goes in circles at his work door to insinuate that he's on to the fact that his life is merely a loop. He wanders around some more, then makes his way to an adjacent building and notices a movie set inside of an elevator. Understandably disturbed, the security guards remove him and Truman has reached his tipping point. Truman's best friend Marlon, which I would consider to be a handler of Truman, tries to convince Truman that it's all in his head and he's just imagining things, and of course, Truman isn't buying it.
The people on the elevator, there was no backing on it.
The next day, Truman tries to leave Sea Haven, but the bus driver intentionally messes up the engine. The wheel symbolism is subtle throughout the entire movie. There's this relation to reincarnation, in which failure to achieve any kind of gnosis in this world will result in you repeating life on Earth, and for Truman is represented in the fact that he can never leave Sea Haven until he's achieved gnosis or enlightenment. At this point, Truman has become more self-aware of the cyclical nature of life. Pathways out of Sea Haven somehow always end up bringing him right back. There's a scene where he's sitting in the car with his wife and he points out this exact thing.
You're on a loop. They go around the block. They come back. They go around again. They just go around and round.
He even drives around in a circle emphasizing his fate in Sea Haven, but after going straight, he's met with all types of obstacles. Truman finally ends up at a roadblock because of a chemical spill, almost convinced that maybe he was just losing his mind. But a cop that he's never met a day in his life calls him by his first name.
Thank you for your help. You're welcome, Truman.
At this point, Truman is fully convinced that this world is a false world. He tries to make a run for it, but is wrestled to the ground as he cries out for help. Back home, Truman has had enough, and it even looks as if he's going to harm Meryl, but in true Christoph fashion, he orchestrates a reunion with Truman's dad. Truman's father was killed earlier in his life out at sea to instill a fear of the open water in Truman. This is why in certain parts of the film, Truman cannot bring himself to get in boats or near water. There's even a scene where Truman sees his dad in public after sneaking back on set, and Truman is flabbergasted by the encounter. His dad is whisked away by the actors on set, and when Truman tries to tell his mom what he saw, she completely writes off the encounter to just seeing things.
They never found Dad's body. Maybe somehow. I'm telling you, if it wasn't him, it was his twin.
Marlon and Truman take a ride to talk things over, and out of the mist, Truman's father appears. It's a masterclass in manipulation by Christoph, playing off the emotions of Truman, knowing this was a traumatizing moment for him as a child. This moment appears to get Truman back on track, back in this loop, and back in his cage. One night, while Truman was in the basement of his home, knowing where most of the cameras were placed, he managed to outwit Christoph and sneak away. In a panic, Christoph issues a massive search for Truman where every actor and extra is out looking for him, even to go as far as making the sun rise at night.
Cue the sun.
When Truman finally reappears, we see him as he's always seen himself, an explorer. He's happy, he's confronting his fears out at sea. With him, he has a makeshift picture of Sylvia, his messenger of truth, and he is charting his own path. And what I would consider to be one of the best climaxes in movie history, Christoph, no longer this sweet, peaceful, godlike deity, begins to unleash his wrath on Truman for disobeying him. Lightning bolt after lightning bolt, torrential rain and wind. Meanwhile, Truman remains unshaken.
The drunken sailor, I am the morning.
Increase the wind. Increase the wind!
Eventually, the storm subsides, and Truman's boat comes to an abrupt stop. His bow crashes to the outer wall set, and it's at this moment where we witness one of the greatest performances from an actor in recent memory. The entire scene is cathartic as we feel for Truman and all that he's been through this entire movie. We are the audience watching Truman become enlightened. We cheer for him as he realizes he was not crazy and that there was something wrong with the world. In a desperate attempt to get Truman to turn back, Christoph speaks to Truman from the sky like a god. He tells him that there is no more truth that is out there than there is in here, telling him that the world he created for Truman was perfect.
You can't leave, Truman.
Please, God,
You belong here
you can do it.
with me.
But at this point, the Truman we met in the beginning of the movie is not the Truman standing at the door of the unknown. This version of Truman has achieved enlightenment. Truman then turns to his false creator with a smile on his face and says the phrase we most know him for.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
He steps into the unknown and is finally free. I remember watching The Truman Show at a time in my life where I was lost. Going through life, we can almost feel we're on this hamster wheel of trying to survive, trying to exist, trying to find meaning, and this movie hits at the heart of that every time. I love film because it can be a way to portray a message that might get lost in translation through other mediums. The Truman Show teaches us that in this round of life that is solely yours, you must embrace your true self and live as authentically as possible when there are so many things subconsciously telling you how to live, whether that be through TV advertisements, beauty standards, or social pressures. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my analysis of The Truman Show. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, stay carefree.